Mă bucur mult pentru entuziasmul cu care m-ați întâmpinat și așa îmi doresc ca acest eveniment să se întâmple și să se finalizeze și aveam undă liberă până la ora 21. Eu sunt Elena Donici și mă bucur enorm de mult ca astăzi să deschid evenimentul nostru Inspiration Session, o tradiție ca vara să dedicăm timp pentru inspirație. Cred că e unul dintre cele mai potrivite momente. Dincolo de căldură, de vacanțe, e bine să ne dedicăm timp pentru ca să ne inspirăm de la cei mai buni și să vrem să devenim și noi mai buni. Astăzi Orange System să vă zice bun venit la Inspiration Session ediția numărul 8, ediție în care noi ne propunem să abordăm două subiecte destul de trendy astăzi. Cred că nu mai este o noutate pentru nimeni subiectele de product management sau inteligența artificială, ori este. Cu siguranță fiecare dintre voi a testat măcar versiunea deschisă de orice tool care ne oferă o imagine sau ne generează o imagine virtuală cu ajutorul inteligenței artificiale sau folosește produse create de alți specialiști. Ceea ce ne propunem noi este să vă aducem un moment de inspirație și să vă arătăm cum pot fi mixate aceste două elemente, astfel încât să devenim mai buni și să, cum spune și mesajul sesiunii noastre inspiraționale, să vă arătăm că oricine poate fi un product manager, dacă știe cum să utilizeze instrumentele pe care le avem astăzi la dispoziție. Toate acestea sunt foarte faine, urmează să se întâmple. Noi avem și un workshop interesant pe care vi l-am propus, l-ați văzut și în agenda, așa că fiți cu noi până la final. Dar nu înainte de a vă propune să îl întâmpinați la fel cu mult entuziasm și pe aplauze pe Sergiu Plăcintă, directorul Orange Systems, cel care astăzi a făcut posibil acest eveniment din perspectiva de susținere. Sergiu.
Mulțumesc, Lenuța. Jumătate din speech-ul meu l-ai spus tu, Salutare tuturor! Bine ați venit la cea de 8-a ediție de Inspiration Session. Deci sunt foarte bucuros că noi începem weekendul cu așa un eveniment. Mai mult decât atât, sunt bucuros că voi ați decis să investiți timpul vostru în participarea la așa un eveniment care nu de alta, dar prinde amploare. Deci noi observăm de la ediție devin mai populare. By the way, sunteți printre cei 60 de norocoși pe care i-am acceptat să vină offline din peste 400 de aplicații. Și aici vreau să am speranța că cei care n-au fost atât de norocoși ne privesc online. Și de asta ne motivează foarte mult, ne motivează să le reinventăm din nou și din nou. Vă promitem că să le continuăm. Și asta e un commitment de contribuție continuă la dezvoltarea comunității IT din Republica Moldova. Deci cine din voi este prima dată la așa fel de eveniment împreună cu Orange Systems? Vă rog, ridicați mâna sus. Ok. Cine a mai fost? Da, it's ok. Deci nu o să divulg prea multe din conținut. Diferențiază sesiunea noastră. Fiecare dată am abordat subiecte inovative, futuristice. Cine a fost la ultimul eveniment era despre blog. Product management și inteligența artificială. Progresul tehnologic astăzi are așa o accelerație încât AI practic va acoperi toate sferele vieții noastre. Rămâne doar să-l îmbrățișăm și să vedem cum putem să-l aplicăm efectiv în orice
We will have a session that would actually, hopefully, help you understand what's this common sense, how to take it forward, how to be able to build innovative products together. Now, I just want to know who here is already a product manager. Is there anyone? Okay, one. Okay, no, that's good. All right. Well, so we have someone who will call me out and scrutinize me. I love this. You know, maybe you can come on stage. You can do some stuff together. This is really cool. Is there anyone who is developing products? I don't know, software engineers, maybe product owners. Okay. All right. We have a couple. Okay. We have several. This is good. Okay. So you'll come on stage as well eventually. That's perfect. We'll have a party here. How many of you have heard about generative AI? Ooh, hype. I love it. Hype. All right. Good. So let's get started. Sergio said, you know, aside of Google, I've worked for many years in other interesting companies such as SUSE Linux, Nokia, Orange here in Moldova. And all of those companies, they have extremely long histories of building products that millions or billions of people are using every day in love. In fact, if you look at Nokia, it's been around for more than 100 years. And you know, if you think about a company that's been on the market for so long and can innovate continuously, you know, one question you need to ask yourself is how do they manage? How do they survive, right? How do they make those products continuously that hundreds of millions of people use and continue to exchange value with? And the people who build those things, they're not magicians, right? What they know is that there are certain systems in place, certain processes that allow you to go from an idea, from an unmet need, to actually building a product. So they simply learn the fundamentals, and what I hope to do today with you is go through the skills and the fundamentals of what it takes to go from nothing, from an idea that you've heard, from an unmet need, to actually developing a product. So the session would actually be about you and how what you can do today is literally just limited by your capability to imagine. And nowhere is this more true than in the current time of generative AI that allows you to ask the right questions, get the right answers, and have this in minutes. Now, I will not teach you to be complete product managers in 1 hour. That would be rather hard. You'll still need to put some hours behind this and so on and so forth. What I will try to give you is I'll give you the keywords and the processes and the things that you need to be looking for and remembering to train your skill as a product manager. So you'll ask, okay, why are you, Roman, so passionate about it? Because I think that with the advancement of generative AI, you get a shortcut to creating products that has been completely unseen before. And let me start with a statement. And the statement is simple. Nothing in the world is truly solved. I really didn't realize this before I started doing products in a serial way. Like literally nothing in the world is truly solved. And of course, you know, being in this room, I already thought that some people will come and say, of course something is solved. For example, you know, the shape of the wheel is solved, right? And this is the premise that I start with. Okay, the shape of the wheel is solved, but as I was doing this presentation, I actually figured out that there is a guy on YouTube that just redesigned the wheel that works. Now, I don't encourage you to design wheels like this. They don't work perfectly well, but that's not the point. The point is that there will always be people around you who will constantly challenge the status quo of how the world works. They'll try to reimagine things that you thought are given, things that you thought that are unchangeable, and they'll try to make products out of them. So, you know, nothing has been truly solved is as much a statement as it's a mindset that you have to work through and remember and build as a person. And to give you a couple more examples, here's a car. Everyone knows what a car is. A car is a 150-year-old technology. And I would argue that even today, a car is only at the beginning of its journey. Not just the shape, not just the fuel on which it runs, not even the interior, the autonomous driving that is being put in the car, the entertainment systems. We're really at the beginning of this product, and this is 150 years old. Even the Gen AI, we're talking about Gen AI a lot, and it looks like it's a hype now and something that's new. The research in something like Gen AI has been going as long as 40 years back. We rarely realize the timelines and the horizons along which innovation happens. Here is another interesting number. Photovoltaics, the technology behind solar panels, has been in development from 1954. And we still do not have it on most of the houses. Like where I live right now, in the Netherlands, we finally got to the point where probably about 20% of households have solar panels on top of that. But there is a very, very long way to go. And you know, it was very interesting. As I was building this presentation again, I came across this article saying that Spain, only now in 2023, so we're talking about, what, 70 years later, managed to have a single full working day powered by renewable energy. So it got me thinking. I was thinking, well, how cool would it be if next time I'm in Moldova, everything that we have, like the air conditioning, the electricity here, would be powered by renewables. And it would come from, I don't know, like wind, solar, and so on and so forth. So I decided to imagine it, all right? Well, luckily, if it was last year, I would probably just imagine it for myself, and it would be very hard for me to translate it to you and show you how things could look like, for example, in Moldova, if you know, Moldova was full of renewable energy capabilities. Today it's different. Today I can think of what I want to imagine, and in seconds also show you what it looks like. So I went to Midjourney, one of the generative AI systems out there that probably uses diffusion as one of the things behind it, and I asked it to show me a photorealistic prototype of a new cheap wind turbine placed on the hills of Moldova in ways that work great with wildlife and farming. And within some seconds, literally, I get a picture of this, right? Okay, you might think, okay, this is not real and so on and so forth, but you have to remember that people have a ton of imagination. So showing someone something like this as an idea, as a perspective, changes completely the way people perceive what's possible. I decided to update this image, change the prompt of this, and make it a sketch so that people understand that this is not a real situation. This is something that all of us want to see. And because I'm always a bit of a geek, I also was wondering how would an engine for a system like this work, so I also asked it to generate an engine in a cross-section. Now, as I was running wild with my Moldovan imagination, I have a favorite sport. And this sport is surfing. So I decided to imagine how would surfing at sunset on Nistru look like. You probably realize now that, okay, this guy lives in the Netherlands, so, you know, you never know. It looks a bit crazy, right? It only goes as crazy as if you ever have been in Munich. How many of you have been in Munich? Okay, how many of you have been in the city center of Munich? Yeah, okay. So in Munich, in the city center, if you go, they have a river. And this is what they do on the river. Okay? So if they could do this in the city center of Munich on the river, why can't it be done on Nistru? In fact, why can't it be a product on Nistru, right? There are actually lakes or surf lakes where people charge a lot of money for people who do not have access to the seaside or consistent waves to pay and go and surf. And the fact that something doesn't exist today doesn't mean it actually can't be done. And nowhere this is more true than in my current home country, the Netherlands, that has 17% of its land reclaimed from the sea, and 26% of land is actually lower than the sea level. Now, believe it or not, but reclaiming the sea in the Netherlands was a private investment. People came together, they imagined that they could do this, they invested money, they invested in relentlessly building the technology to start to reclaim the land. Not only did they get additional land, they also got this land which was great for farming. So they started growing tulips and flowers and bulbs, which actually proved to be one of the important sources of revenue and wealth in the Netherlands. So as long as you can imagine it, you can actually do it. Let's look at another very practical aspect of day-to-day life. I took these pictures one day after work. I live near a forest, and the forest is pretty wild, so you get this type of views there quite often. And this picture was actually taken by a phone, okay? A phone, as many of people here would know, is a 50-year-old technology. And the phone, which is a 50-year-old technology, today integrates a camera and has had a camera for a very long time. This camera today does magic things. It can go as far as do these things. And this deer was not really that close to me. Now, interestingly, the camera is a 200-year-old technology. It's been packaged, repackaged, brought together, and again, we're combining a 200-year-old technology with a 50-year-old technology, and we're still just at the beginning of the journey, because I'm still not happy with my camera, okay? All right. So nothing in the world have been solved, and I understand that achieving 100% energy sustainability in Moldova looks like a very far-out exercise. That's fine. If you're concerned about this but still want to start with a product, you have to remember that in 2023 on Amazon, you can buy a new bottle opener that someone reinvented. And they're also moving the world forward. So that's fine. You could also start small. Okay. After this slightly psychedelic presentation or introduction, I think, let's get to the promise or the premise of the session today, which is in the era of AI, everyone can be a product manager. Now, as a curious person, you probably wonder how and why. So let's start first of all with who are product managers. And as I said, product management is a very, very obvious profession once you understand it. Product managers are simply people who discover an unmet need. They repeatedly reimagine how this need can be solved. And they also figure out how to bring the right people, the right following, to build those products and put them on the market. Ideally, while they do this, they also realize how can the product be built in a way where value can be exchanged between them as the producer of the solution and whoever is engaging with this solution. There are some people who are, let's say, more inclined or more born to be product managers, and you'll see a lot of, young dropouts, who started the product company, pivoted a million times, but did it very early. For the majority of us, however, it's a journey, it's a learning journey. However, with the arrival of AI, you will see that all of us can get a shortcut to the profession. And all you need to do is know what to ask, and then unlock your creativity and imagination. So what I did is, to prove the point, today's presentation was actually almost completely assembled with the help of generative AI, large language models, and all the pictures that you'll see here, almost all, I think 99% of them, were also AI generated, right? So let's get going. First, what I did is I tried, because the presentation is about you, to try to imagine you here today and in the future. So I used Gen AI to help me build that perspective of all of us here in the room as a sketch representing a shortcut between a person today and the person in the future. And again, in just seconds, I am getting a picture. I like this picture, and this is where I'm going from. Yeah. So let's start with a few concepts, as well as let's talk about a number of skills that we need to perform or become product managers successfully. So I saw that a lot of you said that you know about what Gen AI is. How many of you are already using Gen AI as part of your work? All right, wow, okay. Oh, wow, this is so busy, exciting. All right. How do you do it? Like, what do you do? Yeah. No. Ответ на какие-то вопросы? О графическом, окей. Anyone else? Yeah? Okay. Exactly, exactly. And that's exactly the whole premise of this presentation. So, as I started preparing for this presentation, I did exactly what you do. I went to Bard, which is Google's version of LLM, and I actually asked it, you know, what, as a product management expert, give me an outline for a public speaking session. Actually did a pretty good job, right? Sergio, thank you. So, you know, as long as you know to ask the right question, how to formulate it, it's never been easier to get to an outcome than today. However, aside of the curiosity, well, curiosity we'll discuss, let's go to the skills that we just want to look at. So as Bard went ahead and gave me an outline, I also asked Bard about, you know, what does it take to be a product manager. And it started to give me a bunch of skills: curiosity, empathy, critical thinking, communications skills, acceptance of ambiguity, analytical skills, leadership. All of those are actually truly important. And actually, as I worked with many product managers out there, you will see that they have a balance of the skills. All of them have them. Some are stronger in some domains, some are stronger within the other domains. But in my opinion, there are 3 of those skills that are absolutely crucial for you to build good products. And those are actually curiosity, empathy, and critical thinking. Let's look at them. So, what is curiosity? I asked Bard, by the way, you know. It told me that curiosity is a strong desire to know or learn something, or an eager wish to know everything. And of course, it's a quality that can lead to discovery, and it's an essential way to develop new products. So, you know, I could explain you. I decided instead of trying to expand on the session, there is one video that I really like about curiosity. So let's watch it together.
Lumea crede că IT înseamnă cifre și plictiseală.
What we're looking for is how everything works. What makes everything work? It has to do with curiosity. It has to do with people wondering what makes something do something. There's a way of looking anew, as if you never saw it before, for the first time, and asking questions about it. And then to discover that if you try to get answers, that they're related to each other. Things that make the wind make the waves. The motion of water is like the motion of air, is like the motion of sand. Things have common features. Turns out more and more universal. It's almost unbelievable. The truth is so remarkable, so amazing. It's incredible. Take the world from another point of view. It's curiosity. It's the way we are, what we are.
Just like a runner gets a kick out of sweating. I get it, kid. Out of thinking. I can't stop.
It's curiosity.
I think out of all of this, I really like that phrase out there saying, take the world from a different point of view. That's what curiosity is all about. Like, can you look at the world in different angles? Now, like anything else, believe it or not, curiosity is actually a skill that you develop. Of course, some people are naturally more curious. Some people have been curious, but maybe, you know, the system made them less curious or whatever. But as anything else, you can develop it and make it better, right? There are 2 things that I believe help developing curiosity really well. One is practicing mindfulness. You know, I mean, you'll think, okay, well, what does mindfulness, meditation, what does it have with curiosity? You know, one of the important things with curiosity is to try to suppress your desire to go ahead and provide answers. The way we're built as people, whenever we see a gap, whenever we see a question we don't know about, we're trying to instantly fill it in, right? It's just part of the way we're built. So one aspect that really empowers you to become curious is to start to be observant. So if you are seeing a thing that doesn't work as you expect, don't try to answer instantly why you think it doesn't work as you expect. Go and figure out why it's designed the way it works, right? The other aspect is get out of your bubble. I just can't stress it enough. Experiencing even something as basic as new food, visiting a new country, talking to other people that you don't normally meet, go outside of your networking perimeter, is something that will expose you to new experiences that will develop your curiosity. Now, when you do those things, when you practice mindfulness, when you go outside your bubble, what is it that you should be doing? First of all, is you need to make sure that you're asking questions all the time. Growing up here, sometimes I wasn't necessarily very comfortable about going to random people that I've seen at an event and just drilling them with questions. Like I would see that the person does something, I know nothing about their profession, and I would be like, okay, well, should I bother this person? Now it's different. If you're interested in something, just go and ask questions. Nothing is wrong. In fact, you will learn that people like when they're asked questions, right? Explore new things, as I said, read books, and of course, be open-minded. I cannot stress enough the importance of assuming that you know nothing and seeing the world from a different angle. Now, another quick hack that I learned to do all the time is to explore curiosity through your team. So how do you do it? If you write a document, if you write a presentation, one thing that we tend to do is we tend to start a document with an answer to a problem. What if every time you start a document, you would start with a how could we or why? How could we build the next generation of orange systems, right? And just leave it open. You will be amazed how most unexpected answers will come from most unexpected people. And you might learn something new. You might learn things that you don't see in your day-to-day basis within the patterns that you're observing. So why is a very powerful word. What if? How could we? Put them more often in whatever you produce. Keep open-minded, export it, show it to other people, and see the results out of there. So I am a very curious person. So recently I became extremely curious, what would it take to make $1 on YouTube? And that's the reason I actually started my new channel. It was actually out of pure curiosity. So the moment I did start this new channel, I actually realized some things about myself that I didn't know. For example, I apparently do not like to write descriptions to the videos. I just don't. I found several issues with the application flow that I reported to my colleagues. I figured out that making good thumbnails is actually challenging, but this is what attracts people, and there is so much opportunity there. I figured out that getting the sound right in the video makes a whole difference. You can have a very bad picture, but if the sound is not right, no one will listen to you. And because I realized that I don't like to write descriptions, I turned to Gen AI to make it write descriptions for me. So now if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see that the descriptions there are actually not written by me. And it's such a relief, right? So with the current technology, you can think about it. The YouTube channel is also a product, right? I'm trading my time for someone else's time and watch time. And I'm enhancing it and making it simpler to deliver this product with the current tech. I also was very curious to see how can I improve my viewership time. And again, by being curious, looking through a ton of data, in just the third iteration of the video, I went to improve my watch time 3 times. Again, you could just leave it, never be curious about what happens with the products that you're doing. Just a bit of curiosity changes everything. Now, if you would watch my YouTube videos, you would also understand I actually have a severe lack of sense of fashion. So I thought, is there any way I can apply Gen AI to fashion? But I thought that coming here and doing it on myself would not be great, so I decided to do it on Sergiu Plăcint. And I imagined Sergiu. I thought, well, how can we improve Sergiu and make him look like a Viking from Kattegat? Dressed in a Viking outfit. Let's see what we got. It's not too bad, Sergio. I think the next time, next Monday, go ahead. Now, this might look funny, unless you actually look at what my colleagues have just released a couple of days ago. And they released a new experience that takes 80 different models of different skin tone, shape, and whatever is being sold through Google Shopping is actually generated by Gen AI in a type of a true-to-life experience, and creates a product where you can choose your body shape and actually get to see how the product will look on top of you. So sometimes those funny things, they actually translate into real products that change our life and make it so much better. And I don't know about you, but I've bought online multiple times things that would never fit me, and then I had to return them, right? So let's go to the next skill. We discussed curiosity. Now let's talk about empathy. Now, empathy is huge. It is actually essential to develop amazing products that people want to go and consume. Empathy is not just important to develop products, it's also extremely important for leadership. And everyone here who has led people in a form or another understands how important it is to understand what your people do, put them in their shoes, understand why things move better or worse, and so on and so forth. And empathy is all about understanding really the feelings of others. Examples of this is, what does it feel to meet people in pain every day? Or how does a child that struggles at school feel? Or, what it takes to work out in heat and rain year-round. Not only empathy is important to put yourself in the shoes of the others, it also is important to define your personas in product management. And people who do product management, they would know that a persona is a very important aspect of the process, and we'll discuss about personas just in a moment. Now, here's the interesting question. Does empathy fade? How do you think? Does it disappear? Yeah, it does fade. So empathy is a skill that you have to train constantly, right? All of us have been children, everyone. And you'd think that if we have been children, we should be really good at making products for children. Because we've been children. We understand what children want, right? Well, you see in a moment that this is not the case. So a very good example of this is the collaboration between Oral-B and a product design company called IDEO in around 1996. So till 1996, the toothbrushes that you'll find in a shop for both adults and children would actually be the same. The difference is that the children toothbrushes would just have a shorter handle. Oral-B wanted to develop a new toothbrush for children, probably within the same format, just more colorful. I don't know what they had in mind. So they partnered up with IDEO to help them design this new product. So what IDEO did is they went and they started observing children brushing their teeth. What do you think they discovered? That's an option. They don't like to brush, but that's not really an option, okay? Yeah, they figured out that children actually have very limited motoric skills. So what happens is that for them to be comfortable brushing, they need toothbrushes with very large handles. So if you actually go to a supermarket today, you will see that the majority of toothbrushes for kids are actually significantly bulkier than the one for adults. So that imagination that, okay, if this is a smaller human, I'll give them a shorter handle, is not how things work in reality. And again, you'll think all of us being children could empathize and put us in the shoes of the small people and be able to design products for them. But that's not the case. Like everything else in life, empathy fades, and whatever experiences you had before, they'll wash out, and you won't be able to put yourself in the shoes of other people. All right, so as I was looking at this brush, I got so excited about the whole product prototyping, I decided why wouldn't I put Gen AI to some prototyping challenges. So what I did is I actually asked it to create a new self-cleaning toothbrush. Again, this was just a single prompt. It probably is not where it needs to be from a single prompt, but the point is not this. The point is that something that would take me forever, or maybe I would have even given up to do before, I can now quickly generate, show around, and have a conversation with any of you about what would the next generation of a toothbrush look like. I was also sitting at this moment, specifically when I was doing this, on a pretty uncomfortable chair. And I was so annoyed by this, I decided, okay, let me also generate a sketch of a chair prototype. And again, in just seconds, you're getting there. Another sport that I do is tennis. I'm trying to also teach my kids tennis, not very successfully. So I decided to actually try to generate what would a kid-friendly trainer for tennis look like. And again, it's just in seconds, you get to this outcome, you can have this conversation. Never before I imagined this was possible. So how do you train empathy? Again, like curiosity, it's a skill. The most important thing for the empathy is to practice active listening. Active listening is not just about hearing what people tell you. It's about really understanding what they tell you. It's about observing their body language, their tone, in which circumstances they exist. It comes back to the curiosity discussion we had about being mindful about their surroundings, about your surroundings. Second thing is you need to train to recognize your biases and watch for them. All of us have biases. Those are inbuilt in us. It's very natural. However, it clouds our way to empathize with other people really quickly. So you need to take care of this. And of course, seek new experiences. This is the same with the curiosity. You need to expose yourself. You know, sometimes, you know, recently in the place where I play sports, 3 times a year, you have to do bar duty. You basically have to sit at the bar, you know, do all the work. It was an amazing experience. I never realized how the whole system in the kitchen works, in the professional kitchen, right? You expose yourself to those things, you try to understand what people do, the amount of empathy that you could build through this is quite unbelievable. Okay, third skill is critical thinking. Critical thinking is actually the ability to clearly and rationally think about what to do or to believe. It's again one of the top most important skills for a product manager, and it's especially important in areas such as interpreting research or user insights or looking at data. You know, Henry Ford was quoted saying, though people say that he actually never said that, but he was going in this direction, that if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. What you'll see when you do product management is that you talk to users who often will answer your questions, your research questions, within the reality that they currently understand. So your capability to critically think about what people say makes a difference between you building a faster horse or actually going and building a car, right? So how do you practice critical thinking? First of all is evidence discovery. If someone tells you the world is flat, no problem. Go and really start to gather the data. Like, try to find yourself often, weekly, monthly, exploring a new data set, connecting data points, analyzing, trying to present it to other people. You will see very quickly that the more you do data analysis, the better you become at data analysis. Extremely important to get to the ground truth of the reality and critical thinking. Evaluate information, stuff like this. Get out of your bubble. We discussed this also in empathy. You know, be curious, be open-minded. Reflect on your thinking process. All of us have thinking processes. They especially become very obvious and very entangled the more experience we have. Why? Because the more experience we have, the more data we work with, and the more patterns, thinking patterns we develop. The moment you have a thinking pattern, what happens is that you look at any question that's unanswered and you try to relate it to what you know. So you'll always try to find an answer, find a solution based on what you know, based on your pattern. And this is very natural because otherwise you cannot process so much data. So whenever you actually look and dig into a problem, make sure that you understand what your thinking flow is, how to get out of your thinking flow pattern, and how to try to see the world in a different space. And also seek mentorships. Mentorships are actually extremely important. You really want to also make sure that you talk to people that you do not agree often with. It's very uncomfortable to go and talk with people with whom you know in advance that you will not agree. But there is a reason why not. And you want to try to understand their perspective of the world. Okay. So we talked a lot about the critical skills of a PM. We also looked how to apply Gen AI to various things, such as learning, ideation, fashion, imagining various situations, and even building prototypes. In the next section of this presentation, we'll try to build. And the whole idea is that we'll look at a number of concepts and basically a series of steps that you need to apply as a product builder, as a product manager, to build repeatable products. So I started with this statement that my mom told me about. My mom told me about, she said, Roman, Chișinău is dusty in summer. And I'm like, great. But then I thought when I was doing this presentation, why wouldn't I take this statement that is very generic, actually don't necessarily know much about, and try to see how can I develop a product out of this statement. So I mentioned already that the role of a product manager is to discover an unmet need, imagine a repeatable solution that I can do, and then build around this. Now, PM as a profession is actually all about repeatability, right? You want to build great users' products repeatably, and the way you do it is you combine the skills that we discussed with a bunch of frameworks that exist out there to help you iterate. Now, there are a ton of frameworks in product management. You could go around and see what people do. None of them are perfect. Their only goal is to help you structure your thinking process. So you see things like Lean Canvas. They're all the same. It's about a problem statement solution, some unique value proposition, channels that, and your path to customer. I really encourage you, if you haven't done active product management before, to go and look at them and discover which one take you on the right journey. One special call would be to a thing called product requirement document. If you've never worked with it as a product manager, you will see that, especially in very large companies, it's a way to structure the product development process thinking in simplistic ways. So, every product development starts with the assessment of reality, right? A reality check. So if my mom says Chișinău is dusty in summer, I want to understand what does she mean, okay? So first thing first, what I started doing is I started conducting some data research. A simple search in Google actually brought me to Numbeo, which many of you probably know, and it showed me this. I asked about dustiness in Chișinău, but it gave me information about air pollution, drinking water pollution, dissatisfaction with garbage disposal. Why is this important? One thing that you'll understand about early research of the problem is that the early research is as much about you confirming the problem as it is about exposing you to other problems that might actually be even bigger than the one you discovered. So in this case, you will see that I went from dusty in summer to a million of options of where people are uncomfortable, of where solutions don't exist, that I could pivot to very early in my discovery process. Now, another thing that you want to do when you start some early research, you want to do some benchmarking. Because maybe this is the state of the world. Maybe this is how it looks in the entire world. Maybe actually this is the norm. This is the baseline. So I actually went and I compared Chișinău to Zurich. And I actually realized that there are cities in the world where the situation is much better. What does it mean? It means that there are solutions to this problem, right? It means that this baseline can be improved. So I started now to understand the problem a bit better. I also start to understand what else exists in the space that I can solve. So the next thing I did is I started to understand what is the size of the problem. Actually, when you look at things like this, you very early want to start to estimate a potential economic impact. So what I learned is that, according to World Bank, air pollution from fine particulate matter costs 6.4 million premature deaths 93 billion days lived with illness in 2019, and costed the global health system $8.1 trillion. So the problem is also significant as the amount, as price. Next thing that I would do is I would run a competitive analysis. What would be a competitive analysis? In this case, I actually went and I looked, okay, who are the top performers in the global rankings of air pollution? Why do you want to do this? Is because you want to learn from them. You want to see, has the problem been solved? Has this problem been solved globally? Has it been solved regionally? Are there multiple solutions to the outcome? Do you need to even rebuild something, or you just need to, buy something that exists, or bring it on, or maybe extend the channels for it? That's why you want to understand where you stand on this competitive analysis. Once you do this and you go a bit deeper, you can take any of those cities. In my case, I started with Zurich as an analysis, and I actually wanted to learn what happens in Zurich right now with air quality. And I actually learned that starting with 1986, they started to introduce certain processes, like reducing the total amount of traffic in the city, introducing measurement systems, being aware of their problem, so that I understand what could be the potential options for the problem that I have, that Chisinau is dusty in summer. The next thing I would do during product development is I would try to understand my target audiences. So in this case, a quick search would tell me who are the people who are most affected by air pollution. Those are people with lung diseases, chronic bronchitis, and then infants and young children, as well as people who exercise outdoor. In simple terms, I would just map them. They could be my potential customers. Maybe they're buyers. I don't know yet. But they're certainly the ones who suffer the most. Now let's come back to the skills. If I wouldn't have applied any critical thinking to this thing, I would stay here. However, just a bit of critical thinking on top of this makes me realize that if children are involved, then probably their parents are involved as well, right? Because no parent wants to have their child, be exposed to pollution. So we had parents. Because I've done the economic analysis, and I realized that there are issues with people who cannot work long enough because of the air pollution. But also there is whole cost to healthcare. With just a bit of critical thinking, I realized that there are other personas involved that might be part of my whole product journey here, such as insurance companies, pension funds. And this is not even a limited number of personas that you can discover once you actually go and apply the curiosity, the research, the critical thinking in your process. So we've defined those potential users. As a product manager, you don't go and rush and try to build instantly the product that you imagine. Even at this very early stage of research, you want to go and validate what you found with real people. It's actually not as hard as you think to discover those personas, approach them, and start asking them open-ended questions. Where do you live? How is dust affecting you? Why do you think Chisinau is so dusty? What can we do to reduce the amount of dust in Chisinau? And so on and so forth. People who do product management professionally conduct user research way before they have a prototype or a wireframe or anything out there. They do it very early in the process to learn more, to apply their curiosity and critical thinking to validate the entire mechanism. So reality is simply, where are things today? That's where you start. Now, a good solid product also always benefits from a vision. And you as a product manager should have a vision very early on, right? A vision is nothing else than a desired future state. And vision is not only for big companies or grand ideas. At whatever level you are, whatever you do, the moment you understand where's the reality in which you are, you want to start to have a vision that tells everyone what are you trying to change, help decisions, and scales yourself as the founder through distributed decision making, and then most importantly, attracts talent who can align on the same direction as you. So let's see how it actually works in practice. I took a company that I hope most of us know here, Arcea, and I looked at their vision, and their vision is to create a better everyday life for the many people. So let's see how they take this vision and apply that to their day-to-day work.
to create a better everyday life for the many people. That's the IKEA vision. But what exactly do we mean by this? Furnishing business help create a better everyday. Well, it all begins right here. We are passionate about life at home. It inspires us in everything we do. So, to learn what people really need and dream about, we go out and visit homes all over the world. We talk with people, we measure things, we open closets and look in cabinets. We focus on the many people, especially those with thin wallets, because we believe good home furnishing is for everybody. All of these conversations give us valuable insights that we use as the starting point for developing our products and home furnishing solutions. We put our heads together and work hard to come up with affordable ideas to make everyday life at home a little better by creating home furnishings that combine good quality, form, function, and sustainability with the lowest possible price. We call this unusual combination democratic design, and it's what we believe makes our products unique.
Yeah. So we see IKEA, who has a vision of where it needs to go and aligns the entire company and how it operates, how it develops products, how it visits users. Who does it focus to? It focuses on people specifically with thin wallets, people who cannot afford amazing furniture, maybe they don't have big houses, so that they can feel that they can still make their living comfortable. This is amazing. So given that we had this problem, Chisinau is dusty in summer, I decided to try to develop a vision, given that we have a reality that we discussed. So let's see what this vision came up like. So I thought, okay, well, maybe our vision for Chisinau could be to make Chisinau the first dust-free capital of the world, which is not too bad. So the vision is literally only limited by how much scope or how far do you want to go in imagination. If you look at visions of large companies, you actually really understand that their visions are almost never achievable. There is always something to improve right there. So maybe we could even expand on this vision and say make every city in the world dust-free, for example, or make the healthiest capital city in the world, because we've done all this research there on the vision, on the initial thing, where we saw that it's not just air pollution, it's the water, it's so many other aspects. So why wouldn't we try to handle a larger scope eventually? So I got so excited about this, I found a picture of Chisinau somewhere on the internet, and I ran it through Midjourney to help us imagine how would Chisinau look as the healthiest city in the world. But because AI can really push my imagination wherever I want to do, I actually decided to give it a second shot and see, how could we improve even more. So I think that's a pretty good vision of a future Chisinau. I would love to see that, us build this together. All right. We talked about the reality, and then we talked about vision. Let's talk about strategy. What is strategy? Strategy is a very simple concept, in fact. People think that it's some sort of a fuzzy thing that someone up top puts together. No, it's not. Strategy is simply the educated bets that you're putting your resources behind. Okay? Why? So very simple. You have your reality. Chisinau is dusty. You have your vision to make Chisinau the healthiest city in the world. Now, within the world in which you live, within the resource constraints in which you are, what do you believe should happen to get you from the current reality to the vision? And that is effectively your strategy. Effective path to the state of the future. And to actually understand how strategy works, let's look at two videos of a person who most of you might know, and the company you know for sure. And this is actually Steve Jobs somewhere at the end of 90s when he returned to Apple. Let's talk about how he talks about the way he built the strategy for Apple.
When we got to the company a year ago, there were a lot of products. These were the product platforms, 15 product platforms, and a zillion variants of each one. I couldn't even figure this out myself. After about 3 weeks, I said, how are we going to explain this to others when we don't even know which products to recommend to our friends? If we had 4 great products, that's all we need. And as a matter of fact, if we only had 4, we could put the A-team on every single one of them. And if we only had 4, we could turn them all every 9 months instead of every 18 months. And if we only had 4, we could be working on the next generation or 2 of each one as we're introducing the first generation. So that's what we decided to do, to focus on 4 great products.
Now, same person 15 years later. Let's see how it held.
See, I look at this a little bit differently, which is we're not trying to do a lot of this stuff because it's not what we do. We don't think one company can do everything. So you've got to partner with people that are really good at stuff. Like, we're not, I mean, maybe Microsoft is great at search. We're not. We're not trying to be great at search. So we partner with people that are great at search. And we don't know how to do maps on the back end. We know how to do the best maps client in the world, but we don't know how to do the back end. So we partner with people that know how to do the back end. And what we want to do is be that consumer's device and that consumer's experience wrapped around all this information and things we can deliver to them in a wonderful user interface, in a coherent product. And so in some cases, we have to do more work than others. In the case of iTunes, there wasn't a music delivery service that was any good. We had to do one, so we'll do one. But in other cases, there's companies doing a way better job because we're not as good at this stuff as other people are, and we'd love to partner with them. And so, we selectively do that. And I think it's really hard for one company.
But entertainment, you're both in entertainment.
So I guess if you're using any of their products, and that was Apple, you could really clearly recognize how their strategy translated into the results and what you see on the market, right? Even for companies as big as theirs. Why do you need a strategy? Well, here is the deal. If you didn't have a strategy, you could take any path from your reality to your vision. You could, you would probably spend tens of years to get to your destination. But all of us live within resource constraints. We have people resource constraints. We have time constraints. We have, just basically skills, money, exactly. With a good strategy, you do not need to do this. You have a more effective path to your vision. So a good strategy starts with a number of hypotheses. Some of the hypotheses that I could think of about why Chisinau is dusty is that maybe there is not enough vegetation. Maybe there is too much exposure of dry land. Maybe we need some windbreakers. Maybe some government policies. Maybe there is too much traffic. You start to hypothesize why things are not as close to your vision as you imagine. In this case, I actually also went ahead and asked Bart to tell me as an urban expert to define some strategies to make a city dust and pollution free, just to make sure that I cross-checked my understanding of the situation, my hypothesis. Well, and fair enough, it actually gave me pretty good feedback, including very much in line with what I learned from my initial research. Because all of this came from my initial research when I was doing the product research. Reduce traffic, plant trees, use cleaner fuels. It even gave me some additional information of what I should be caring about. The climate geography of the city, the size and density, the economic situation. So for the purpose of this exercise, and to keep it simple, I decided to define 2 points in my strategy to make Chisinau achieve the vision that I wanted, which is to develop scaled ways to make each citizen participate in greening the city, and create ways to encourage people to not use cars in the city. And this came out of my hypothesis. So along the way, of course, what you want to do is you want to record all this analysis that you do, your vision. You want to build a structure. The reason you want to do it as you go through the progress is that at some point, you'll need to bring other people to your team. You will not be able to achieve those things. You'd want to communicate this vision to a friend, to someone who wants to partner with you, to someone, to investors. So make sure that you structure all this analysis so that when you bring people with you together, they could look at the same data, same analysis that you've done, tap into it, understand the problem, and come with you on a journey. So we defined a bit earlier what could be some of the people that could be affected by the challenge that we discovered. And with these people in mind, the next thing we will do is define personas their journeys and the product journey. So again, as we have 2 points in our strategy, I decided to build 2 personas for them. For the first point of creating ways to encourage people to not use cars in the city, I used Gen AI to create a virtual Maria. And Maria is a 20-year-old woman living around Chocana who loves outdoor sports and would love to see her city have less cars and more options for alternative transportation. Why is it so important to see Maria? Why is it so important to know what her age is, what she likes, where she lives? Because, why? You start to empathize with her. It's a real, in your mind, it's a real human. You can feel her, you can see her on the street. The moment you see a person, a woman riding the bicycle, you go, oh, that's my Maria. You know, it's actually very, very similar. Have you ever bought a car for yourself? How many people bought a car? Okay, there are some fairly new. There is one interesting observation that I had, and I don't know if you had it, when I bought a car. The moment I buy a car of a specific type, I start to see that almost half of the city around me has exactly the same car. In fact, even the same color. And I've never observed this before. Right? Exactly. That's the same with Maria. Suddenly you start to see them all around you. You start to know whom to talk to. You start to know who their friends are. And in fact, if we talk about the product journey of Maria, let's think about how could have Maria discovered some of the things that we could propose for our strategy. And you know, we can imagine Maria and her friend who mentioned that there is a new way to rent motorcycles in the city. And that her friend introduced her to a new mobility service that she can sign up for. We can imagine what the buying experience is. Maybe it's with a credit card, maybe it's a gift card, maybe there is an introduction, maybe there is a free trial. What happens? What's the journey? And then, what can she do in an application? And again, many of you will see similarities with many applications you already use today. Okay, I can have a map. I can discover the location of the motorcycles. Maybe I can see my friends who are riding the motorcycle and want to go for a ride together, right? So we also want to see what's the happy path. When Maria is happy with the service, what needs to happen? When would she give up on her car, right? There is a lot of value in building user journeys and product journeys, because if you start thinking about that person as if it was real, you start to see where are the fallacies in your thinking process. What's not right? Where things are missing? What could be the turns that the person takes? Now let's look at the second strategy, which is to develop scaled ways to make each citizen participate in greening the city. Again, with Gen AI, the virtual Ion, who is a 35-year-old man living in Chantru, who wants his children to stay healthy and live in an unpolluted city. Okay, perfect. So Ion has been pleased to find that he can use a new service that allows him to adopt a plot of vertical space, because why not? So that his building could be covered by a vertical garden. That makes him feel good, because he can contribute to making the city greener. And upon signing up for the service, Ion discovered that membership to the service allows him to become a World Vertical Garden Community Champion. And that allows him to get travel discounts to cities and hotels that practice vertical gardening. So now Ion feels great that he can help Chisinau change, but also can extract more of his economical benefit. We can relate to Ion. We can also relate to the service as we go with this. So now that we created those user journeys, the next thing would be, again, to go and talk to our users. Because those user journeys, you'll see how fast you fall in love with them, by the way, with the user journeys. And this is very, very tricky. Because in the end, what your imagination is and what the reality on the ground is often a very different reality. So let's talk about prototypes. Unlike many people think, prototypes are not really functional products of any sort. They're just a starting point to actually start to define a future product and how it looks like, right? Nowadays you have a ton of tools on the market that would help you build wireframing prototypes. You probably all know about Figmas and whatever is there. For this specific presentation, I actually just use Google Slides for prototyping. A prototype can be a process. You could just literally draw your process on a napkin, find your Marias and Ions and have a conversation. Look, would you adopt a vertical patch of grass? How should this look like? Would you get a certificate? And just listen to people. Again, if you practice active listening, see what they tell you. See if they look at this process, this is too complicated. Or no, I would have to actually take this other step. That's a very valid prototype. Another valid prototype is just simply compose something like this, which I did with Google Slides. And actually, your early prototypes, it's okay to keep them really low fidelity, really low resolution. Why? Because people have crazy imagination. Crazy imagination. So you show them something completely incomplete, and then it's all about asking them the right questions. What do you see? What would you do with this? What would you click first? Why would you click first? What do you think about this price? What do you think this price is for? What does the map do? What it would show you? You know, you say, what would the map show you? And they would show, someone tell you, will show me the location. Someone will say, will show you my friends. Someone will say me the route. You listen to them, you ask them questions, they will tell you what is the experience that they expect from the product. And you really do not need to invest that much to build a good prototype out of which you can learn a lot from your future personas. And the last point I want to cover is package distribution and price. I've seen endless times when people start building products and never think about how will users discover them, pay for them, which channels would be used for acquisition. So one thing that you really need to keep in mind, and I'll not go into this topic because it's a very, very big topic, is how will users discover and consume what you're building. If you're assuming that you will build and they will come, you'll be hit by a very hard reality, right? And again, if we look at a camera, which is a 200-year-old technology, it's been packaged and repackaged millions of times, right? Today, a camera is found in a phone. And if you actually think about it, the phone is a product. We think of a camera as a feature of the product. But the camera itself is a product. So whoever creates the cameras, the chipsets, the lenses, they found their new distribution model to be the phone, because this is how their users are going to buy them, are going to find them. So let's recap. What have we learned today? We learned two things: building critical PM skills and mastering the concepts for repeatability. We went to understand the critical skills for a product manager, the tools that the product manager has at hand to build repeatable product outcomes. We took a problem statement, hello mom. We conducted research and a comparative research. We conducted a competitive analysis. We learned out of this competitive analysis what solutions have been already applied to this kind of problem and how it solves the challenge. We discovered the people that are most affected by the problem. We sized the opportunity, understood how big is it. We've built a vision after we understood the reality to make Chanel the healthiest city in the world. We've developed a two-point strategy to have each citizen participate in greening the city and encourage people not to use cars. We've created our persona, Maria, and we imagined how she would use and discover a service. We've built a prototype. We've discussed about packaging, discovery, pricing, and all of this in about an hour, helped by GenAI. One thing, GenAI can do many things. One thing it still can do is it still can't be curious. Curiosity is still your privilege, and make sure that you use it every day. So I invite you to join me to start to solve the unsolved. And of course, thank you. Okay, should we do a quick Q&A? Any questions that we want to handle? I think that after the practice it might be a bit challenging because everyone will be spread around there. So maybe let's do a couple of minutes right now if there are any questions, and then we see as we go. Yes, Spoonie. How can you find people that are better than you? This is a very good question. Most of the people out there will be better than you. Pretty much. So the reality of life is such that we have limited brain power. So you might be great at one thing, but there will be always someone great at the other thing. This is why you will see that, for example, many founders, one thing they'll do very quickly is they'll find themselves someone else who is better at things that they're not good at, right? This is one thing. As you scale your team, a couple of things. If you lead teams, you need to start investing in those people very early and grow them up. In fact, you actually want to become replaceable. People are very afraid of being replaceable. But in fact, reality of life is so that if you are surrounded by smarter people, they would elevate you together with them, right? And that's one thing that I would always recommend. Meet other people, get outside your bubble, see where skills of each individual are, where they're better than you, whom can you partner with, as well as if you happen to be a leader of a group, make sure that you invest in those people early to elevate them as fast as possible so that they outperform you, again, as fast as possible. Yes, Nico.
Yeah, in era of AI,
yeah.
products which are being generated or partially produced by AI.
Yeah.
What do you think about intellectual rights and property rights?
Yeah, so the question is, what do I think about intellectual rights and property rights? I don't have a good question around this. I think there is definitely a debate happening, at many levels. From, if you go to Midjourney, they'll have a current position on what they believe the whole intellectual property thing is. I'm sure that many companies out there are discussing this, governments are discussing this. I don't really have a clear answer to this. I think this is one of those conversations that will continue happening for a very long time. And at some point, some frameworks would probably come around that would guide us towards how things should be looking at. Yeah.
Of course, we should talk to our customers or users. My question is, how do you understand that I found out the question they asked for? So how many people I have to interact with? How it usually happens? How to understand that it's not like internet?
Okay. So the question is, how do you improve an existing product, right? And how do you get from the existing product to knowing that it needs improvements and how many people and what are the thresholds? That's a very good question. So first of all, I think as a product manager, you should be on constant lookout and interaction with your users, right? So there are multiple ways how you look at analyze the data. So if, we talked about the baseline, we talked about the reality. One important thing of repeatable product management is that you should be rebaselining all the time, right? You should understand what is the current reality because you do not live in a static world. So it's not just your product, it's what the world needs right now, how the environment changes. Yesterday we didn't have Gen AI, today we have Gen AI. Similarly with the strategy, because a lot of people think that strategy is fixed. Strategy is not fixed. If you think about the strategy as an effective path to go from reality to the vision, if your reality changes, you need to be constantly on the lookout. What is now the effective path, right? Because if yesterday, again, you build an electric car, and the cost of an electric car or battery was half of the car, and today it's maybe 1/10 of the car, you're probably going to have a completely different reality. So you need to be on the lookout and constantly looking and talking with your customers, reassessing where you are competitively, looking at the data, your consumption. I don't think that there is a very clear, one shot where you're saying, if you talk to 5 users, you're done. There are definitely quite a bit of the assessment frameworks. Actually, yesterday was just here for a session with Planable where they were saying that, they use one of the frameworks to analyze the product market fit, where, one of the most important questions is, if the product didn't exist, how upset would you be? And if it's above a certain threshold, then you know that you're getting there. There are a ton of things like this. What I personally do is, first of all, you talk to the users, you look at a ton of data, you try to size the opportunity, but then you also, as a product manager, at some point, you have to develop a bit of a gut, right? You have to have a clear feeling and this critical analysis where what happens is you look at the world, you combine all the data sources that you're doing, and then you're making your bets. Reality is, no one knows if you have a good idea. No one. If anyone tells you that I know that whatever I do will succeed, they're looking at the crystal ball. So the job here is to be so good at doing the homework in product analysis and knowing the users and empathy, where your chances of actually landing something that is close to a product market fit and quickly iterating to get it there are as high as possible, right? But reality is that till you don't put things, at least at the prototype level, in the hands of many users and they start to give you feedback, it will be very hard to know if you get traction. Talk to many small companies, to many startups. They'll tell you, hey, we launched this thing, 3 months in, we have 2 customers. And then we're like, oh my God, we just spent like 2 years building this, then there is nothing, right? And then they iterate and iterate and iterate, and suddenly it goes flat, 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 boom, right? Yes?
Would you limit AI?
Sorry?
Would you limit AI?
I don't have really an opinion on this. So I would skip this. I'll leave it to people who are deeper in the topic than I am. Yeah, so I mean, we discussed obviously the whole LLM models. I think, you know, there is a whole score of capabilities that are coming prepackaged on the market. So you'll see that people are building specialized models. Again, we saw a model for fashion. There are models for medicine. There are models for you know, drug discovery. There are so many of those domains. So the beauty of the world we live in right now is that you do not have to have a world-class research organization in-house to actually benefit from the same products and outcomes. So as long as you today have an idea of what you want to do, you know, contact centers, support, any of those domains, there is likely someone who can help you and provide you the right models and the right technology to get you there. Oh yeah, yeah. So this all starts with questions, right? There is no good answer to this. This is where, again, the 3 skills that I talked about, curiosity, empathy, critical thinking, come in place, as well as listening, active listening. So if you know that I want to create an experience, this experience probably came out of somewhere. Someone told me, hey, I want an experience in bicycle riding. Or I want like, there should be some substance to it. And the moment you understand what the substance is, this is where you can use existing generative AI tools to go and say, okay, well, as a product expert, what I did with Bard, tell me 3 things I could do to create a new experience for bicycle riding. And just start from there and ask the next question and next question until you get where you need to get. Yes? Go. Yeah, this is a very good question. The reason why it's a good question is because it actually doesn't have a very defined answer. And the reason why not is because till now, there are very few opportunities in the world where you can go and study product management. So you'll see that there are just some schools appeared in the world. I think, I don't know, the business school in Spain probably does something in this regards. You know, probably Stanford does something in this regards. Very few schools out there teach product management right now. Most schools teach the skills that you need for product management, right? But not it as a profession. So all of the product managers I know have came from a completely different reality. They have been in services and engineering, in sales. They bring a wealth of knowledge, which actually in a larger company is extremely effective because you have a group of people who have a lot of knowledge about the world depending on the reality from which they came. Again, fundamentally, all of them have to have the base skills of a product manager that we discussed, you know, strong communication, strong analytical skills, you know, they've developed quite a bit of thinking process to them, and they know how to build products repeatably. But the path to product management really starts with trying to figure out a plan to put yourself in the position where you could start building your first product. You don't have to be named a product manager to build products, right? I mean, this is currently the conversation that we're there. You could call yourself, you know, Master Yoda and still build. Actually, you know, in my current company, I at some point put my name as Master Yoda. That's fine. So yeah, Ooh. Oh, this is a very interesting question. Wow, this needs a bit of thinking. So 3 things that I learned from Google that could be implemented on the local market. Well, I don't know what the local market reality currently is. Let's start with this one. But definitely, you know, one thing that I've learned out of Google is that you definitely want to keep hiring the best people that you can find. I think this is obvious, right? And it's coming back to the first question that we heard about, how do you make sure that you work with the, the best people out there. I think the other thing that I learned from working in Google is that you should give people a lot of personal scope, especially in product management role. A good product manager should have full scope of work. The reason why is because you want to have a person who makes decisions fast, right? So that they're not really constrained by having to do too much consensus. And I think the third one is actually trust, okay? So trust is extremely important. You want to make sure that you give people enough space, and this might sound cliche, but this is reality. Because no one knows if your idea is good. You will likely fail. What you need to build as a skill is to know how to quickly pivot when the signs of failure appear, so you don't make it too dramatic. But again, if I would think like this, it's obviously, hire the best people, make sure that you give them the right scope that they can own, make sure that you trust them to do the right thing. Yes?
As a manager working in a company for years,
Yeah.
and somehow all of your resources, personal resources, are you're forced, are your position to be more or less in the same situations, talking to the same people, more or less again.
Okay.
Dealing with more or less the same problems, stuff like that. How do you, from your personal point of view and your experience, could you please give us 2 or 3 examples of how do you change your perspective besides asking AI? How do you
Okay. So if I understand the question right, you're asking, okay, well, you're in a certain position, you live in a certain bubble, you see the reality in a certain way. How do you make sure that you don't get stuck in that only reality and that you source additional perspectives, right? Yeah. So, I mean, we're coming back to that whole curiosity and empathy thing, and again, this is why it's a very important skill. As a product manager, one thing that you do constantly is you talk to users, right? So, and I actually mean it, right? Like, we do have continuous rolling research where every single week I would go and meet a person that I haven't met before. That's one aspect. Second aspect is depending on how big the place in which you work is, you are likely to work years and years and still not meet everyone around there. So as one of the things that you'll see people doing is, it's not unusual to get to yourself introduced to another person, have a conversation, see what's happening. Various conferences and events of those sorts are interesting. You know, when I was younger and when I was more eager to learn information, I would go to conferences for information. I don't go to conferences for information anymore. I go to conferences for perspectives that I might have missed, right? So again, exposing yourself outside the bubble. You could be somewhere at a dinner. You could be again at an event like this. The best thing you could do is just go out, after an event like this, and just find 10 people you've never talked about, and actually just go and ask them questions. This will look very weird from the other person's view, but yesterday I was here, and I was just like, okay, what do you do? Okay, why do you do this? Okay, you're a startup. Do you have users? Okay, what do they do? So it's fine. You do it once, twice, it becomes second nature, and then you're like, oh, I haven't thought about this. I learned a lot yesterday out of the session which I've learned, people do a lot of edtech in Moldova. I've learned a lot about Plannable. It's something that I could have sat at home and enjoyed my short trip to Moldova, but I didn't. I took myself off in the heat, brought myself here, learned something new.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, last question. Let's go. Can you take it? Well, I will always recommend you the Google AI tools, of course. That's this question. Look, reality of today's AI is that, of course, user-facing tools. I mean, the core technology is, there are a few large research labs that develop the core technology. There is a lot of open source. Consumer-facing applications are something that appear as mushrooms every day. So I wouldn't recommend you anything. I would just tell you, go and search and see what works for you. There is a ton of YouTube stuff. People are doing crazy things. For this presentation, I used Bard and Midjourney. There are a ton of other services, and I think we're actually just scratching the surface of what our experiences are, visible or invisible, by the way. Like I was showing with this whole garment and fashion thing, they'll be embedded around you. And whatever I will recommend you today might not be that relevant tomorrow. So just keep curious and keep searching. Okay, I think Elena says that we're done, right? Time was. Okay, last question. There is the person really wants to ask a question. Last question. Can you? When is Bard available here? I don't know. I mean, let's keep the tab on this. I think that. Let me call Sundar. Yeah, no. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the folks are working on this, and at some point there will be availability. I'm sure there are also reasons why. All right, good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's go to the next point. Okay, so for those of you who still are alive after this presentation, we invite you all to the second part of our experience today, which is a bit of a workshop. And what we'll do in this workshop would actually take the process that I just did myself, where we'll take one question, one challenge, and we'll try to follow a step-by-step process to see how do we come from this challenge in a short amount of time to some reasonable reality of a potential prototype or product. So we invite all of you right there. Elena knows everything about this, and I know nothing. So let's go.
Yes, please.
Lumea crede că IT înseamnă cifre și plictiseală. Nu-i chiar așa. La Orange Systems știm o nouă rețetă de a lucra în IT. 31 linii de cod, o cafea savuroasă, creativitate și o gașcă de colegi harnici alături. Știi despre ce vorbim? Pentru că cele mai frumoase idei apar în bucătărie, am creat Orange Kitchen, un loc gândit să-ți încurajeze mintea să zboare înspre ceva nou în fiecare zi. Aici n-avem loc de plictiseală. Zilnic inovăm și experimentăm noi tehnologii. Și te asigurăm, nu e nimic mai plăcut decât să îți vezi ideile transformate în realitate. E frumos să ai colegi buni, mai ales dacă ei îți devin prieteni. Împreună așezăm talentele în capul mesei, ne inspirăm unii pe alții și coacem proiecte delicioase. Și mai știm că fiecare linie de cod scrisă bine aduce un zâmbet de satisfacție împărtășit cu echipa la o cafea. Ți-am făcut poftă? Orange Systems, o nouă rețetă de a lucra în IT.